Yo, I just wanted to let you know, like, before the video starts, the reason I made this, which is, obviously very different from my other videos on my channel, is because I like listening to, like, any Reddit stories while I'm doing anything, like true horror or confessions or anything like that. And, a lot of good channels doing that. So, the people that I'm kind of inspired to make this video by are the channels Snook and Mr. Nightmare. I will be linking both of them in the description under this video. I love their work and I'm a big fan. They inspired me to make this. This is the kind of video that you would want to put on, like if you're trying to sleep or you're playing video games, going for a walk, just doing chores, washing dishes, watering plants, whatever. Like, yeah, this is just something to listen to. I like to listen to these whenever I'm doing any of those things. So, yeah. I live alone, or at least I thought I did. I moved into the house last fall, a little cottage at the edge of town, tucked behind a curtain of pine trees and wrapped in silence. It was cheap, quiet, and came with just enough creaks in the floorboards to feel lived in, but not haunted. I was pretty grateful for that. I needed peace. It was the first place I'd ever had to myself. No roommates, no boyfriends, no shared leases with passive aggressive chore charts. Just me. I could finally buy the soap I liked, light candles that smelled like anything but pine, and leave my bras hanging off chairs without apology. I live alone, or I thought I did. The first time it happened, I chalked it up to forgetting. A light left on in the hallway when I swore I turned it off. A spoon in the sink I didn't remember using. Small things. Annoying, but explainable. Then it got weirder. I started waking up to the closet door cracked open. Just a sliver, like someone had peeked in, or out. I'd shut it and gone to bed, and the next night, there it was again. It was repeated a few nights until I finally stopped bothering to close it. One morning I found muddy footprints in the entryway. Just one set, small, really small. I didn't own shoes that size. I didn't even own mud. The yard had just been bone dry for weeks. I checked the locks. I checked them twice. Nothing was broken, nothing stolen, just the footprints leading to the basement door. Don't go down there much. It smells like earth and iron, and there's a crawl space at the back I never dared look into. Too low to stand on, too dark to see. I kept it shut tight. Until one night I heard humming. I was brushing my teeth. The sound soft at first, childlike. The same low tune, over and over again, echoing up through the vents. My blood ran cold. I froze, toothbrush in hand, and strained to listen. I stopped the moment I moved. I slept on the couch that night with all the lights on. The next morning, the basement door was open, wide open. That was the first time I considered leaving, but I didn't. I told myself it was stress, fatigue, or a dream, maybe. People hear things all the time in old houses. That's all it was. I told myself that, over and over. Then something changed. I came home from work, and the hallway light was on, again, but this time there was something new. Written on the mirror in the fog of the bathroom were the words, "Stop closing the door." I hadn't taken a shower that morning. The mirror shouldn't have been fogged up. My stomach dropped, and I backed out of the room like it might lunge at me. I slept in my car that night. This morning, when I went back outside, the house was calm, quiet, too quiet. But on the kitchen table, where I always leave my keys, sat a small object, a child's tooth, still red at the root. I didn't call the police. I should have. I know that. But what would I have said? Ah, yes, someone might be living in the walls and left a baby tooth on my table. Oh, and they write messages in the fog and hum lullabies through the vents. I'm sure they would have rushed right over. So instead, I threw the tooth in the trash, grabbed the flashlight I kept in the junk drawer, and went down into the basement myself. The air down there is always colder than it should be. Not crisp like a refrigerator, no. It's a damp cold, like something breathing just behind the cinder block walls. That kind of cold that sticks to your bones and makes your joints ache. The crawl space is at the far end of the basement, behind the old oil tank. A low rectangle in the wall, just about 2 feet high. It used to be covered with plywood, nailed in haphazardly, but that morning it was open. or rather peeled back. I stared at the black rectangle like it might blink. My flashlight shook in my hand. Then I got on my stomach and I went in. The dirt floor was damp, and the smell hit me immediately. Decay, and something else, something sweet and rotten, like a candy apple left too long in the sun. I crawled forward, light dancing off the exposed beams and cobwebs. There were scratch marks in the dirt, fingernails, I think, a trail of them, leading deeper. That's when I saw the bed. Just a pile of old blankets tucked under the foundation, but it had shape and order. Someone had made it. Next to it, a small tin box with children's toys inside. Broken plastic animals, crayons worn to stubs, and off tucked in the corner was a mirror, small and oval, the kind that belongs on a vanity. The glass was fogged. I wiped it and nearly shat myself. There was a face behind me. Pale, small, childlike, but wrong. The proportions were off. The eyes were too big, too glossy and too still. The mouth was open, but no breath came out. I turned. My flashlight flickered. Nothing. Just dirt. I crawled backward fast enough to scrape my elbows raw. I slammed the plywood back over the entrance, nailed it shut with shaking hands, and haven't gone down there since. But now I hear them, every night. 2 sets of footsteps, one light, one heavy, and sometimes when I lie very still, pretending to sleep, I hear breathing under the floorboards, right beneath my bed. And the worst part? Last night I found another message on the bathroom mirror. Are you my new sister? I don't sleep anymore. I try, I really do, but the breathing is louder now, closer. It's no longer under the floorboards, it's in the walls. Sometimes I hear it crawl past my headboard, and the drywall gives a soft crack as something shifts inside. Last night, the hallway light turned on by itself, then off, then on again, click, 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 like it was dancing. I finally called someone. Not the cops. Again, I know I should have, but I didn't. I found a guy online. His name was Darren, and he said he specializes in hard-to-explain problems. I didn't care how insane that sounded. I just needed someone else, anyone, to be inside this house with me. Darren showed up this morning with a suitcase full of gear and a face that looked like it had seen too much already. I get a lot of these, he said, stepping through the threshold. But yours feels bad. I agreed and began explaining what was happening. The door, the crawl space, the tooth, all of it. But he didn't respond much, just nodded and started scanning the place, room by room, EMF meter in hand. A little recorder clipped to his jacket. I followed him, too afraid to be alone in any room, even my own. After 2 hours of nothing, Darren paused outside the basement door. He looked at it and then at me. You said the face was down there? I nodded nervously, and he opened the door. The smell hit us like a wall. Damp, sweet, foul. Something's dead down there, he muttered. I wanted to run, but he flicked on his shoulder lamp and descended. I stood at the top of the stairs, cold sweat running down my back. A minute passed, then another. I called out, Darren? No answer. Just a sound. It wasn't Darren, and it wasn't footsteps. It was dragging, like something was being pulled slowly across the dirt floor. I backed away, not realizing I was holding the doorknob so tight my knuckles went white. I called for Darren to come back in one last hopeful attempt, and the voice floated up from the dark. But it wasn't Darren's. It was weak and quiet, like a child's voice. We're not finished playing. Then the basement light flickered, and I heard giggling as something ran off, out of view. I slammed the door shut, and I haven't opened it since. That was 3 days ago. The door to the basement is nailed shut now. I hear scratching from the other side sometimes, and sometimes I hear Darren's voice whispering through the vent, telling me to let him out, but it's not him. I know that. It can't be. Yesterday, I went to leave, just to walk away from this whole cursed house, but the front door wouldn't open. Every window shows something different when I look out. Sometimes it's night when it's supposed to be day. Sometimes it's not even my yard. Last night I woke up and someone had tucked me in, folded the blanket, turned off the lamp, left a note on the pillow in a child's handwriting. Play with us. And this morning I could hear them again, the footsteps, walking in sync with me just behind the walls. One light, one heavy, and a third pair that sounded like boots. And now I can hear breathing behind my mirrors. This story was from Apache Blackwater, user Apache underscore Blackwater on Reddit r/scary stories. So, I mean, I thought this is my first time reading it. Right here, you heard it. So, I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it. I like the idea of like the guy that you called to help got taken like basically immediately. I think that's neat. So yeah, I really like that story. All right, so the account that made this story, they deleted their account, but it's from 12 years ago. Not really sure who to credit on this one, but yeah, let's just get into it. About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion party pretty late at night, and the drive was about 2 hours. I didn't stay the night because I had to be back for work the following day. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side, the real creepy ones you see in a lot of movies. Anyway, I had been driving about 45 minutes, and I was starting to get really tired. You know how sometimes you just suddenly become really tired out of nowhere? Well, yeah, that happened to me. I knew it wasn't going to last, but I didn't come across any place that I felt I could park and sleep safely. Anyway, after it became clear to me that I wasn't going to find a place to pull up, and my tiredness wasn't going away, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road onto the grass, behind some bushes, to try to hide my car from anybody else who would come past. The roads weren't empty. I came across another car every few minutes or so. I made the mental note that the time was 11:22 and then fell asleep. Sometime later, I was awoken by a scratching sound. I looked at the clock, 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was still extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. I was later awoken by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time it really freaked me out because the sound didn't stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was just the animal inspecting the car, but why would it return almost an hour after it had left the previous time? I looked in my rearview mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running away into the forest. Now, at the time, I thought it was the damn hook killer. You know, the one that scratches that couple's car and then slaughtered the guy when he got out to investigate? Fuck that, I thought to myself, so I got the hell out of there. There was a bend no more than 100 yards up the road, and I came around it. There was a fucking car, parked off to the side of the road with the driver's side door opened. I slowed down just to look to see if anyone was in there. There wasn't. I looked in my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything, and all of a sudden, this guy comes sprinting around the corner. He starts screaming at me, shouting stuff like, hey you, get the fuck out of your car, now. I noped the fuck out of there and sped off. I never saw the guy again. Moral of the story, don't fucking sleep on the side of a deserted road. Alright, story number 3. This one's by da_cake_eater. So, yeah. Every time I stay at my grandparents' house, I hear someone walking upstairs. It starts at one side of the room, casually walks to the other, and stops. This will happen maybe twice a night. I didn't start hearing it until I was about 14, when my grandparents made me start sleeping in a different room on the first floor because they started sleeping in separate rooms. Blah, blah, blah. Regardless, both of their rooms are also on the first floor. For a little backstory, I've always been afraid of the upstairs at their house. I don't know why, but it's always freaked me out, and I refuse to ever go up there alone. I'm 23 now, still won't go up there alone. There's one room specifically, though. It's a long, narrow bedroom. When you open the door, there are closets on your left and right, a bed placed roughly in the middle of the room, and a window on the far opposite side of the door. I was told growing up by my grandparents that the sons of the previous owner claimed to see a gorilla come out of the closet at night, dance around the room, and go back into the closet. I thought nothing of the story until I had to start sleeping in the other room, the room located directly below the scary room upstairs. So we all go to bed. All the lights in the house are off and I'm still awake, lying in bed, and then I hear it. Thump, thump, thump. Starting at one end of the room upstairs. It got closer to me, passed right above me, and continued to the end of the room, where it stopped. I'm wide awake at this point, terrified out of my mind. There was no question in me that I had heard footsteps. I knew that slow, casual pace. I was freaked out and went to my grandpa's room. I told him what I heard. He told me that the house is old and it creaks, but he turned the dining room light on for me, so I felt a little safer. I tried going back to sleep. Then it started again, this time from where it ended the first time, by the upstairs window. It walks over me again and stops when reaching the door. I thought this was over until 5 seconds later when I heard it coming down the stairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Silence as it reached the landing. Then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and silence again as it reached the first floor. I was frozen in shock. Whatever it was on my floor of the house, and sadly unaffected by the dining room light. I was staring at the doorway to my room. The dining room light was shining in, and my vision began to distort. I felt dizzy with fear, so I pulled the blankets over my head and suddenly heard a scratching sound from the inside of my room. I knew exactly where it was coming from, too. My grandpa's gun case. It was a very obvious sound, scratching on the wood, long scratches down the front of the gun case door. I could even hear the door ever so slightly tapping against the frame as each scratch began. I tried to scream, but I couldn't. I took a second to take a deep breath and let out a loud scream. In seconds, my grandpa had made it into the room, and I was relieved. Needless to say, he still didn't believe me, so I did what any normal person would do. I draped a sheet over the side of the bed and slept underneath it. I wrapped myself tight in a comforter, put on headphones, and turned my back to the door. There could be a party of ghosts in my room, and I wouldn't even know. The next morning, my grandpa told my grandma about what happened the night before. She said, "Oh, that's silly, Your cousin woke me up the last time he stayed here. She came into my room saying, 'I hear footsteps.'" I slept under the bed for the rest of my stay with them. I've stayed there countless times since that happened, and I hear footsteps every time. I sleep on top of the bed now, but I keep my back to the door, sleep with headphones on. I haven't heard it come down the stairs since that first night, but if it does, I don't want to know. That was a cool story. I liked that one. I thought it was neat because there was no physical proof that it had happened, but it was creepy. I got some chills reading that. So, yeah, that was a good one. Good story. All right, now on to the last story. Story number 4 is by Stein Dickens. That's the name of the user. And yeah, let's dive right into it. Let's dive headfirst into this story right here. Okay, this is 100% true. I'm 23 now, and this happened about 10 years ago, so I was probably 13 or 14. Anyway, I used to skateboard all the time with my friends, Tim and Brandon. One day we got done skating, and we decided to go to 7-Eleven and get some food/drinks before we went home. Remember, I was only 13 or 14, so we weren't driving. We had skated to the 7-Eleven, and we were planning on skating or walking back home. Anyway, we bought our drinks, and we left the store. We walked to the parking lot's exit and prepared to cross the highway. It's not a bust highway, since it's a small town. While we waited for the traffic light to turn red so that we could cross, I looked behind me at the 7-Eleven gas pumps. I noticed a 40 to 50-year-old man pumping gas into his white truck. He stared at me, and before I knew it, he dropped the gas pump and jumped into his truck. He slammed on the gas and sped straight at me and my friends. He missed us, but he grazed my arm and knocked my skateboard out of my hand. My friend Brandon screamed, "What the fuck? You asshole!" as the man peeled out and sped into the parking lot next to 7-Eleven. I swear, he drove through a ditch, which was between the 7-Eleven's parking lot and the parking lot he was in, and tried to run us over again. This is where it got bad. The three of us started running at full speed across the highway and toward the local library, which is 2 to 3 blocks from 7-Eleven. When we were about a half block away, I looked back and saw the maniac speeding toward us, full of rage. Brandon and Tim ran up to the library doors, and I ran toward the woods. It was Sunday, so I knew the library was closed, and there was the trail in the woods which led to my backyard. Meanwhile, this maniac peeled into the parking lot and hopped out of his truck. I looked behind me before escaping into the woods, and saw him grab either a shotgun or a crowbar. I was pretty far away at this point, and I was freaking out, so my vision wasn't great. I ran all the way home, and when I got to my street, my neighbor, Tim's dad, told me to get in his car because we had to go to the video store. which is where Tim's mom worked. When I got there, I found Tim and Brandon. They ran to the video store after realizing that the library was closed, and 3 cops. A minute later, my mom came in, crying her eyes out because Brandon and Tim told her they didn't know if I lived or not. Everyone had thought that I was captured. Tim told me that he saw the guy running after me into the woods, which is scary because I thought the maniac was chasing them, not me. Anyway, he was never caught, and I spent the next 5 years worrying about every white truck I saw. Edit, I forgot the most scary part. My town is small, but it's not empty. There were plenty of people around while this was going on. I felt so helpless running for my life. Well, there were at least 100 people around, not doing a thing about it. Also, to be clear, we didn't provoke this man at all. He tried to hit us for no reason, and that's pretty creepy. Brandon called him a dick, but that was after he tried to run us over. We were good kids, trying to walk home, and we almost died / got seriously hurt because of it. So yeah, that was some Reddit stories, not necessarily like paranormal, all of them. That last one wasn't paranormal, but yeah, I just wanted to read some Reddit stories, what more is there to say? So please, if you could like the video, if you could comment, support, any support helps me. I have at the time of this 42 subs, and I like drawing cartoons, but I wanted to branch out because I love listening to these Reddit videos. So yeah, I figured I would try my shot at them. Any support helps. Share the channel around, please. If you guys want more of this, just comment and I'll find some more. There's no limit of Reddit stories. Also, I enjoyed making this video, and it was pretty chill. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.